As the climate crisis already begins to create challenges for people around the world, the threat of the major changes climate change will likely bring in the coming decades is already affecting people's mental health. To discuss COP², the United Nations initiative to tackle this, I'm joined by Dr. Beth Haase and Dr. Gary Belkin. Both welcome, and thank you very much indeed for joining us today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
So Beth, maybe I could turn to you first. The first question, it's a big question really, isn't it? Which is, how is climate change affecting people's mental health?
Right. I mean, I think it in many, many ways, and that's why it's a big question, right? I mean, there are all of these sort of direct biological effects on the brain, the things that come with heat and air pollution and raising rates of violence, raising rates of suicide. People with mental illness are particularly vulnerable. And to climate change, they're one of the disadvantaged groups. And just because of their mental illness, they die more easily in the heat, But I think that for what we're talking about today, what we're really talking about is that it's a global problem where you see these cumulative traumatic impacts, right? And they're sort of like chronic low-grade trauma as well as bigger traumas. And how do we respond to that? Because we know that we don't actually have enough mental health providers to do it, right? And so that's what this panel and this question is really about.
So COP², what's COP²?
The COP² is a network of about 350 organizations and growing that's trying to grasp the size of the answer to your question and the bigness of your question, which is not only what Beth mentioned, just more need, more distress, more demand, but the social effects of that. It erodes the ability of people to act collectively and to solve problems. And we really need that civic muscle now more than ever. And that hasn't tended to be the business of mental health providers and systems, but these 350 organizations plus are saying, no, it has to be, and how do we do that?
How did it come about?
So I mostly worked at kind of a population level around mental health. I was the mental health commissioner for New York City for a while, really thinking about how do these forms of distress affect whole communities? And so when I left that work to focus on climate change, and people were starting to talk about these outsized effects on populations, but also the psychological strengths our communities need, particularly that are most climate adversity facing communities. How do we put that to work? How do we put that to ground? So a lot of the principles for public mental health are really applicable there. And we want to bring the whole psychiatric community to see its power to help its communities face these challenges.
Let me ask you a question which is, how do you go about giving people that reassurance when the answers to the bigger questions involved aren't always so clear?
Well, I know Beth deals with this a lot, and I would just say my short answer would be it's not so much reassurance as tools for people to find their own way to live with this reality and try to seize opportunities to work on.
And so what's the overall mission, vision of COP²? What are you hoping to achieve?
So we want to use the diversity of this network to really show new ways that mental health works within other aspects of community life, how to implement through the work of climate change, through other social spaces and places. We know a lot of how to do that, but we haven't really implemented that way. And one of our first big opportunities is to work with something called the United Nations Race to Resilience, which is about how communities can grow their own power to do climate adaptation. And we said, hey, you also need psychological resilience and mental resilience as part of that path. It's not just physical infrastructure and strengthen it. And so we need to bring mental health systems, but all these other mobilized civic energy around climate to do the work at psychological resilience goal as well.
I mean, what I would say is it's really about psychiatrists supporting the lay community. It's maybe about us having a public health role that we haven't had, but it's about us empowering them with the knowledge that they need to do what they already do well in a local way. So,
how can people find out more at this conference at the town hall?
Well, we have a COP² town hall meeting tomorrow, and we're really, really hoping that people are going to come out, because what we need is all the expertise of psychiatrists who work in the community. Think about, how do we do this? How do we make ourselves available on a national level in this North American hub in a networking way that remains creative and vital? And we really need you to help us figure it out. So tomorrow, room 151, Moscone South, please come. It would be really great to see you all.
Well, thank you both so much indeed for joining us today, and I hope the town hall tomorrow is a great success, and I'm sure it will be. So thank you.
Ethan, thank you.